Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast, everyone. My name's Elijah. Today we're here. I'm going to have a little bit of a different episode for those of you seeing on YouTube. I have an LA Times article up about the, supposed federal agents at Dodger Stadium. Um, I think this is an important thing to talk about. I think it's important to discuss the relationship between uh, baseball in the US as it currently exists, Major League Baseball in particular, and immigration. Um, this is it should be something that is readily apparent to everyone, but as we talk about what roles teams should be having in, either asserting themselves or kind of staying on the fence in conflicts like this, I think it's important to show just how much this industry is propped up by other countries, by immigrants. That this is a game that fundamentally obviously, we got all excited when the Orioles built this new this Dominican complex, started training guys there. They, like host their DSL games there, all sorts of stuff. Um, so this is the exchange of money and like employees across countries, which inherently, deals with immigration law. Um, so I think that it's like important to talk about this. I think that I feel like we at the Warehouse Podcast have never really been shy about hiding our our political I guess alignment. Um, and I think that that this is just a conversation that needs to be had. And I think once you start looking at it, it's frankly kind of silly. Um, just even let me give the timeline of events and then I'll give commentary, I guess. So I think the first thing is on Wednesday, um, the Dodgers went ahead. I have a tweet somewhere. Um, maybe I don't. All right, well, the Dodgers went ahead on Wednesday and said, we are going to go ahead and announce plans for providing assistance to immigrant communities in the LA area that have been affected by these ICE raids, the subsequent, clashes. Um, once again, 98% of these protests are peaceful, and the ones that are not are aggravated by the people standing in front of them. That said, um, the Dodgers go ahead and announce these plans on Thursday morning. Pics start circulating online. There are masked men with guns and whatever in white vans pulled up outside of Dodger Stadium. The initial reaction was, the Dodgers are allowing ICE to go ahead and use this as a staging location. They're cooperating with them. This is something that the Dodgers ended up pushing back on. They said this morning, ICE agents came to Dodger Stadium, requested permission to access the parking lots. They were denied to the grounds. They were denied entry to the grounds by the organization. Tonight's game will be played as scheduled. Um, so the Dodgers, go ahead and really deny that they were complicit in this in any way. Um, ICE then kind of fires back and says, false, we were never there. Um, which, you know, it's hilarious. They talked in this way, just false, period. We were never there, period, on Twitter. It's a government agency, but obviously still run by a bunch of little boys. Um, so ICE denies this was them. The Department of Homeland Security claims that it was Customs and Border Patrol, which is somewhat corroborated by a couple reports from people on the ground there. For example, a Customs Border Patrol officer there is quoted as having said they were processing arrests from a local Home Depot raid. We all know Home Depot is the hotbed of the criminal underworld, so it makes sense they were there. But either way, it does seem that this was, you know, per what the Dodgers are saying, they had no compliance in this. They were not like cooperating with these groups in either way, whether it was ICE, whether it was Customs and Border Patrol, whatever. Um, and the Customs and Border Patrol officer went ahead and said that they like to kind of find like big open areas to process arrests because Home Depot is not. safe enough location. They want to get away from the public, of course, but the Dodgers, at the end of all of this, they kind of like postponed this announcement that they had of assistance to immigrant communities. Um, some people, I remember Craig Calcaterra on Blue Sky had gone ahead and said it would stand to reason that after the Dodgers had announced that they were going to be providing the support to immigrant communities, that this was somewhat of an intimidation tactic by, whoever it was, ICE, Customs Border Patrol. They obviously work hand in hand together. It does stand to reason that this would somewhat be an intimidation tactic from them. Like this reporting by the LA Times does certainly confirm that these were federal agents parked there, and also confirms through non-official sources that the Dodgers did actually deny them entry. Um, so, like in some ways, you want to say the Dodgers are on the right side of morality here. I would certainly like to say that as well. I do think that something we should say though is that the Dodgers come out with this announcement and they say, in partnership with the city of Los Angeles, the Dodgers have committed $1 million toward direct financial assistance for families of immigrants impacted by recent events in the region. Additional community efforts to be announced in the coming days. So, the thing that I want to stress about the Los Angeles Dodgers is $1 million, right? I mean that is very, very slightly above the major league minimum. This is, 1/70th of what they have committed to Shohei Ohtani for 1 year of baseball. This is, I mean, just absolute chump change. This is such a meager and meaningless amount of money in the grand scheme of what the Dodgers have financially. I will stop and I will say they did say additional community efforts to be announced in the coming days, and I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they will step up their game. But this is the first thing they wanted to come out swinging with, and it was just $1 million. So again, just a pathetically small amount of money for a Dodgers team that obviously rakes in, more than $500 million a year. A community, the community that supports them. I saw estimates that their fan base is 40% Latino. I saw, well, this is the next thing I saw. The 2025 Dodgers bobblehead schedule. I think like the way that I wanted to go about this was not just demonstrating like, obviously the Dodgers have this moral obligation because these are vulnerable families being preyed upon by an authoritarian government. I'm setting that aside. That all is true, but I wanted to take a slightly like lighter look at this and kind of look at it from the angle of the hilarity of the hypocrisy here. Um, or maybe it's not hypocritical, but the hilarity of, how much immigrants mean in particular to this team, the Dodgers, and uh, just juxtaposing that with these pretty meager efforts that they are putting forth thus far. Um, so just looking at the bobblehead schedule. On April 2nd, Shohei Ohtani, an MVP bobblehead. Shohei Ohtani is an immigrant. He was born in Japan. Freddie Freeman was born in California. Dave Roberts, born in Japan. Mookie Betts, American. Shohei Ohtani, Japan. Vin Scully, America. Will Smith, America. Tommy Edman. Um, I think one of Tommy Edman's parents is an immigrant. I need to check myself here. I might be totally making this up. Um, Thomas Hyunsu Edman. Um, American professional. Okay, he was born in Pontiac, Michigan. His parents. I mean, his middle name is Hyunsu. Even if I can't find this, I'm gonna feel vindicated. Um, okay, I'm not seeing it on Wikipedia, and I'm not gonna make the people who are listening in podcast form wait for me to search Wikipedia. Yep. Okay, we're gonna skip past that. I do remember. Uh, Yeah. He played for the South Korean national team in the WBC. That's what it was. Yeah. So Tommy Edman has a connection. At some point, his parents came from another country. Blake Snell, I don't know his story, but he is pretty American. Ice Cube. Ice Cube is not a baseball player, but he is American. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Japanese. Joe Davis is American. Ron Say is American. Fernando Valenzuela, who I will stop here and I will say, you know, one of the reasons that the Dodgers have this unbelievable Latino community supporting their team is because they took a Mexican American pitcher. I'm sorry, a Mexican pitcher in Fernando Valenzuela, not Mexican American, he was Mexican. Um, and they put him forth. He had this phenomenal rookie campaign, and they bought into it. Fernando Mania was an absolute sensation. There were like hats in the stands. I'm saying like, big sombreros in the stands. This was a like cultural revelation to have a Mexican guy tearing up the major leagues. And this is a big reason that part of their fan base, is so or I'm sorry, the Latino part of their fan base is so loyal to them is because of somebody like Fernando Valenzuela. Um, yeah, I don't know. And they are still here in 2025 making money off of this guy, selling bobbleheads or selling tickets that accompany a bobblehead. Um, and yeah, anyway, let's keep going. Teoscar Hernandez is an immigrant. Roki Sasaki is an immigrant. Kobe Bryant is not. Blake Trinan is not. Shohei Ohtani, again, is an immigrant. Shohei Ohtani, again, is an immigrant. And Tyler Glasnow is not. So, I read through this and I'll just give a quick rundown. So, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Okay, so 10 out of 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 21. So yeah, out of 21, like we are clearly the immigrants on this team in particular, and in this team in particular's history are so valuable and have built the identity of this franchise. There are like songs in Spanish playing over the loudspeakers all the time. Um, I mean, it like this team as it stands does not exist without without immigrants. It's that simple. We love to call it America's pastime. We love to call it um, like this. We love to idealize it in the old 1950s era, but that's just not what baseball is nowadays. To drive this home again, I want to take a slightly different look at just like who is popular in Major League Baseball. And the funny thing I came up with was I was like, man, it feels like on MLB The Show, the video game, it feels like these cover athletes have been increasingly not American recently. And sure enough, I looked back in 2020, Javier Baez, he is Puerto Rican, if I remember. Yes, Javier Baez is Puerto Rican. I did write it down, thankfully. Fernando Tatis Jr., Dominican. Shohei Ohtani, Japanese. Jazz Chisholm Jr. is from the Bahamas. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., born in Canada, raised in the Dominican Republic. And Ellie De La Cruz is one of three athletes on this year's cover. He is Dominican. The other two being Paul Skeens and Gunnar Henderson, who are American. But this just shows like the people that we are marketing nowadays, the people that are the stars of this game, that are, the ones that we want to put forth, those people are immigrants. Those people were born somewhere else, and American society, in some way, shape, or form, has deemed that their talents are worthwhile of being here, that they deserve an opportunity to succeed in America. And my God, they're doing it. They are like, they are immediately the people that the populace as a whole has fallen in love with, that are contributing in some ways to the economic value of baseball more so than anyone else. Us Orioles are sitting here and like we're finally about to see Samuel Basallo. I did go ahead and I looked at our 40-man roster, by the way. Um, so we have 40 people on the 40-man roster. I don't know if you guys were aware of that, but the 40-man roster has 40 men on it. This is something that is a little bit higher level knowledge in the baseball community. So don't feel bad if you weren't aware of that. But just looking down it, Keegan Aiken, Brian Baker, Felix Bautista, Dominican Republic, Scott Blewett, Kyle Bradish technically doesn't count against the 40 because he's on the 60-day IL. Yenir Cano is from Cuba. Luis F. Castillo is from the Dominican. Sir Anthony Dominguez is from the Dominican. Zach Eflin is from Orlando, short ways away from me. Uh, Yaramil Giraldo, Dominican. Gregory Soto, Dominican. Albert Suarez is from Houston, but he's also on the 60-day IL in case any of you were going to try to trip me up. Um, let's see. Who else do we have? Oh, Tomoyuki Sugano is Japanese. We come down to the catchers. Gary Sanchez is from the Dominican. Jorge Mateo is from the Dominican. Ramon Urias is Mexican. Who else do we have? Ramon Laureano is from the Dominican, and Tyler O'Neill is from Canada. And while Trump and ICE are certainly not worried about Canadian immigrants because they're white. They it it does show that like a sizable chunk of the Orioles 40-man roster, these 12 guys that I just listed are all immigrants. And again, like the Orioles would never get through the end of a close game if we did not have Felix Bautista, Sir Anthony Dominguez, and Gregory Soto. The Orioles would not be able to hit a baseball for the entire first month and a half of the year if Ramon Laureano has not been there. Like the value of these guys is irrelevant to the issue at hand, of course. Like I don't want to say that like the Dodgers should feel some extra type of way about this because their immigrants are very good at baseball because Yoshinobu Yamamoto is, like worth more, and that's what like makes immigrants worthwhile. That is like certainly not what I'm saying, and I want to like make that point because it is. Yeah, I am pointing out the talents of these people to further like demonstrate the hypocrisy and the level to which these teams are relying on these immigrants for production and for their own like sustained like performance within the industry that they're in. Like the Orioles, if like we all looked at the Orioles not having a presence in Central and South America as a huge failure of the organization. This was something we all criticized Peter Angelos for. And, like Peter Angelos was largely doing it for ethical reasons. He thought it was unethical that uh, that we were like entering into agreements with 12, 13-year-old kids. And then, to be very clear, this is still happening. These signing days that everyone is super excited about, you're not supposed to have negotiated with anyone before that. That's when the signing period opens up. And, that's clearly not what's happening because the signing period opens up and you have this onslaught of 97% of all of the deals that are going to get done happen on that first day. That is not how like actual negotiation works. Clearly, we have been talking to these guys for years. They have been working out at our academies. And negotiations have already taken place. So don't get it twisted. Like this is very much the exploitation of minors. This is very much like signing them to relative to what they could be worth. Like you look at like Juan Soto, relative to what he is worth now as a $750 million guy, whatever signing bonus he got, I don't know what it was exploitive. He did not get to like enter into the draft and get a signing bonus that was like commensurate with his talents. And I think this also you can just look at the top draft prospect and the top international signing prospect, and you can compare their deals year over year. I mean, the MLB draft prospects are getting, 2x what the top international prospects are getting. And I think that's, I'm like spinning that off of like, I think Jason Dominguez or some of the more recent ones have had like a $4 million signing. Most of the time, the top prospects in the class will get like $2 million, whereas top draft prospects nowadays, I think that top pick is worth $9-10 million. So I know we gave Jackson Holliday a little bit over 8, and that was a record at the time, but it does go up every year, to be very clear. Um, so the only other thing I wanted to point out here, just looking at um, like how immigrants have been pervasive uh, within baseball, we go ahead and we look at like the top selling jerseys. Um, this is actually different than the list I had looked up earlier, but you know what? We're gonna roll with it. Number one, Shohei Ohtani. He is from Japan. Bryce Harper is American. Aaron Judge is American. Mookie Betts is American. Ronald Acuna Jr. is from Venezuela. Juan Soto is from the Dominican. Francisco Lindor is from Puerto Rico. Fernando Tatis Jr. is Dominican. Corey Seager is American. Jose Altuve is from Venezuela. Nolan Arenado is from America. Pete Alonso, America. Trey Turner, America. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Canada and Dominican. Ellie De La Cruz, Dominican. And I will say, like, you know, Guerrero is really Dominican. If his father had not been an immigrant, he might not be here right now. Um, we've got Adley Rutschman there, Matt Olson. Those are both American. Manny Machado's from Miami, Hialeah to be specific. Bo Bichette, another guy who is the son of an immigrant, and Freddie Freeman. So, you know, again, like the people that America has like fallen in love with and they are buying their jerseys and they are you know just like these are the people building this game that we love, baseball. You know, Major League Baseball is a story like fundamentally crafted by immigrants. And you know, we have like the Roberto Clemente Award. You know, we have these people who have shaped the game in such like um fundamental ways. You know, you simply cannot like argue that any team who makes a profit in a given year is not partially doing so because of immigrants. You know, this is like this is the fundamental nature of baseball. It is a I mean, we are trying to create a global game. You know, we are putting on the WBC partially to expand how like to expand how well beloved this game is in other parts of the world. And MLB is putting money into that because they fundamentally think that that will then in turn increase their own product and, you know, like eventually make them more money. So th this is an active effort being leaned into by baseball because they understand that like the success of this game is inherently tied to the success that it has and the popularity that it has overseas because that talent filters up to MLB. MLB, like we are, excuse me, we are not emigrating, you know, like American players unless they have already gone through Major League Baseball and MLB has decided they like no longer collectively want them. You know, Jake Bauers is sure, you know, he's playing in, I don't remember if he's playing in Japan or Korea right now, but he's playing over there and he's doing fine. But that is only because like MLB had him first, used him up for what they wanted him for, and have moved on. And, and I guess, you know, like I'm ranting a little bit, but like I think the fundamental truth here is that these are teams whose pocketbooks are lined with the production of immigrants. And that is in terms of the fans coming to their games, that is in terms of the performance on the field, and that is in terms of um you know just like the whole cultural like viewpoint of the game of baseball that has all been shaped by immigrants. And the fact that any one of the 30 teams in MLB is not actively, you know, making statements against this, is not actively putting things forth, you know, to support immigrant communities, to, you know, even shelter them, to do whatever is it, you know, it's laughable. It is disgusting to the point of being laughable. I guess that's a better way to say it. Um, so yeah, you know, I thought this was important to say. Like, I think that I think that it cannot be overstated how like, you know, going back to this Dodgers quote announcing their $1 million, right? They said, for families of immigrants impacted by recent events in the region, right? You know, they don't even have um in honor of multiculturalism, they do not have the cojones to go ahead and just say impacted by like raids by the federal government in our city. You know, you can say this so much more directly. Immigrants impacted by recent events in the region. You know, it's like the immigrants are not being impacted by like protesters speaking out for them, you know, by these protests popping up. They are immigrated by people trying to raid their communities, trying to like steal parents, trying to, you know, like of children who like go to school and come home without anyone there. Like that is what is impacting these communities. It has nothing to do with like some general vibey sense of recent events in the region. And like the reason the Dodgers say recent events in the region is because they are cowards, because they are scared of the retaliation of the president of the United States. They are you know, they are fundamentally protecting themselves, and also this $1 million, to be very clear, is also protecting themselves. Like they are playing both sides of this by being soft on ICE, on DHS, on Customs and Border Patrol, who, you know, whichever group you want to attribute it to, even the president himself. Like they are being soft on them because they are scared of retaliation. And at the same time, they have thrown like their pocket change toward these immigrant communities because they are scared of the retaliation of their fan base, of the people who support them, of the city of Los Angeles. Um, and like at some point, you know, this is virtually like the federal government almost trying to like, I mean, not almost, you know, this is like folks in the federal government trying to effectively start a war and create a war zone in LA and, you know, like establish dominance in the region. You know, like we talk all this stuff about, you know, Russia took over Ukraine, over the Crimea region, all this stuff. Like this is an invasion, for lack of a better term. And this is, you know, an assertion of authority, an attempted assertion of authority. And this is I mean, this is everything you read about in books, you know, of like what you should be scared of. Um, and the Dodgers, you know, despite the fact that this city has made them one of the richest teams in the entire world, one of the richest sports teams in the entire world, this city made them that. Immigrants made them that. And they said, okay, we'll throw you $1 million. And you know, it's just like it's comical, it's tragic, um, and you cannot give them a hard enough time, frankly. Um, so just keep that in mind. You know, I love baseball too much. Obviously, this is a baseball podcast. You know, I am not at the point where I could like boycott MLB or anything like that. But if somebody decides to do that, I will certainly support it. Um, you know, this is a game built upon the backs of immigrants, um, built upon the performance of immigrants, the like continued steady flow of immigrants. That is how this game functions. And that is how this game is exciting. You know, I talked to you about like the jerseys that people are buying, the like the video game that I bought earlier this year, MLB The Show, right? Like Ellie De La Cruz is the most interesting character. I love Gunnar Henderson. I love Paul Skeens. They're great. You know, they seem like fine human beings, but my God, they are boring. They're boring, right? Ellie De La Cruz is one of the coolest guys in all of Major League Baseball, and he's the exciting one on that cover. You know, despite the fact that the other two are extremely good at baseball, and that's why they're there. They deserve to be it. But yeah, I mean, just like again, going back, it's like Vlad Guerrero Jr., Jazz Chisholm Jr., Shohei Ohtani, Fernando Tatis Jr., Javier Baez. Like everyone on the cover from 2020 to 2024 was an immigrant. You know, it's so silly that like we are in this position where, you know, no major league team has truly spoken out in any direction about this. The reason that the Dodgers have been forced to say something is because they have been pressured by community leaders. There was an open letter signed by like 50, you know, like large names in the community. You know, I frankly, I am not in LA. I don't know all of those names or anything like that. But they have received like very, very vocal pressure to assert what side of this they're on. And I think it's fair to say that they would not have done this $1 million if that had not happened. Um, I am glad, they didn't allow federal agents uh, onto their grounds, but silence or a lack of like strong action is also a form of compliance. The quote unquote silent majority is compliant with every bad thing happening in this country right now. So, um, just some food for thought. I have ranted. I feel better personally. I feel a little bit lighter. I'm gonna enjoy my day. Um, I guess I will, give the super brief outbrief of what the Orioles have done in the last couple days. We split with the Rays in the how do I say this? Um, the like cauldron over fire that is Steinbrenner Field, because it's just so hot. I mean, these guys like I felt bad for Tomoyuki Sugano. It does not get to 97 degrees with 88% humidity in the nice island country of Japan. That's not really a thing that happens. So I felt for him, but everybody was sweating. It was kind of crazy, but we survived. We split two. We won the second and fourth games of that series. A couple nice pitching performances. Enjoyed seeing Dean Kramer do well on Tuesday. And then last night we came out and we beat the Yankees. And man, I don't even need to go into specifics about that. It is always just nice to beat the Yankees. So we're going to continue that set against them this weekend. We are up in the Bronx. Got two more games to go. Second one starting pretty shortly here. With that, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go enjoy it. And remember, I don't know, just, like remember fundamentally what this game is. And like when you are consuming this content, you know, acknowledge your own hypocrisy if you support what ICE is doing. And if you are against what ICE is doing, let this beautiful game and the role that immigrants have in it be an additional reason for you to hate ICE. I cannot say the F word on this podcast because that is what we decided, but just know how I would use it if I could. This has been the Warehouse Podcast. My name's Elijah. As always, if you could subscribe to the show, like the show, rate the show, do whatever with the show, interact with us. We are over on Blue Sky, um, firmly over there, more and more so these days. Um, Over on Blue Sky, the warehouse, I'm sorry, the warehousepod.bsky.social. You can email us at the warehousepod at gmail.com. We're up on YouTube. You can come see us on YouTube if you want to see our faces. We're also on podcast form if you are tired of seeing our faces on YouTube. I get it either way. I support it. Um, and yeah, that's all I got. Appreciate you guys bearing with me for this one. It is a dark time in our country, in our world. Um, and simply going ahead and continuing to pretend it's all okay is not the way to go. Um, so yeah, the onus is on all of these teams to acknowledge their own place in the world, acknowledge the role that immigrants have, to their entire industry, and come out and speak out and support. That's all I got. This has been the Warehouse Podcast. My name's Elijah. Go O's.